Only darkness was the vision that I could perceive. Inside my mind, all I could witness was a brilliance of darkness. I was lost inside an enigma, but I slowly found an exit through the obscurity. I opened my eyes. I was lying on a bed. I didn't know the reason for which I was laying down. I had a disgusted sensation lingering inside my mind that slowly triggered down to my eyes and made them sting and feel heavy. It travelled through my mouth, which made my saliva feel thick. It went all over my fingers, then my stomach, which twisted my insides and arose a sensation of vomit. And it kept travelling and enduring inside my body, my mind, and my senses. I was perplexed to realise that I'd escaped an enigma of darkness and entered a room that was utterly as dark. And that disgusted sensation still remained. I stood up on a bed that was irregularly slimy, but the sensation that concerned me was not the sliminess. It was an extremely strong thirst. Thirst that I've never felt before. My face felt extremely wet. Therefore, I touched it to wipe away the liquid. At first, the liquid felt like sweat, but as I looked at my hands, the liquid had a dark red tint and was smeared all over my fingers and palms. This was not frightening, and I didn't feel worried about anything whatsoever. My eyes then fixated on the room's atmosphere. As I investigated, I realized that the bed was covered in the same red liquid, and my body had stains from it. I looked around the room and saw that it was completely empty, except for the bed, 2 windows, and a door that was closed. I stared at the windows, but the glass was covered in a dark, slimy substance. I then gazed at the floor and saw it covered in the same red liquid. Deep red, dark red, murky red. There were piles of knives scattered throughout the floor, so many that it was difficult to see any detail of the genuine floor. I slowly placed my feet on the ground, feeling the cold liquid moving around and in between my toes. The edges of the many knives that were in my area cut into my soles and pierced my skin. I looked at all of the knives near me and picked up the cleanest one. I held it tightly with a strong grip. I slowly took a step towards the closest window in an attempt to stare and look outside of my room. But to my dismay, I wasn't able to see anything outside. I was only able to glare at the detail of the dark substance, which appeared as thick and slimy as mud. I then realized that there were many teeth, nails, and pieces of skin and hair inside and on top of this thick substance, and they were all as tainted dark as it. I didn't feel frightened or petrified. I didn't feel anything whatsoever. I did not feel anything. I then turned and slowly walked towards the door, stepping on the many knives which kept piercing my skin, and I could hear the sound of the red liquid move from the force of my steps. As I walked, my eyes were completely mesmerized on the door and stared at nothing else. The door had stains from the same dark substance that was on the window, as well as on the doorknob. Gripping the knife in my hand tightly, I reached for the doorknob and opened the door very slowly, hearing its screech which echoed throughout the room. As I glanced outside the door, I witnessed a long hallway that had a very narrow path to walk in. The hallway walls were covered in red liquid, a new coat for the usual white and beige walls that I would typically see. The hallway floor was the same as the one in the room, full of red liquid. But instead of knives, there were multiple decapitated heads covered in the liquid and dissipated all over the floor. Some were half of a head, and many were completely dismantled, There were many teeth scattered through the floor, and eyes and tongues, dismembered body parts all over the hallway. Multiple fingernails, hands, arms, legs, torsos and feet. A couple of fingers and legs were still twitching around the floor, creating splatters from the liquid and making a noise like fish splashing on a small puddle. There were guts and body intestines that had completely smeared everything in the hallway. Mutilated brains were scattered throughout the floor, and multiple pieces of stomachs and heart and kidneys. I stared into the hallway, which seemed endless, and I saw the gruesome carnage throughout the surroundings. From the entire slaughter and obliteration of body parts, there was one dismembered head that was not dismantled, but it was covered in the red liquid. Maybe I was hallucinating or something, like out of a scary movie. It was lying right next to me, reclining the back of its head on the wall as I stared at it. Its eyes were fixated on my face. Its eyes glared at my eyes. And slowly, I saw its lips move, saying, "It's only a nightmare." The words slowly came out of its lips, and I repeated them. "It's only a nightmare." The head's mouth then slowly turned into a big smile that appeared to get larger every second I stared at it. I got on my knees and picked it up. The red liquid was gushing out of its neck and dripped all over my legs, which created an echo of drops that emulated throughout the hallway. I looked at its eye and stabbed it with the knife I was carrying. I stabbed it deep and gouged the eye out of its socket. The head did not make any movement against my attack, and it did not appear startled. It only smiled and said, "It's only a nightmare." I looked at the eye, which was dripping a flood of red liquid as it gazed at me. Then I slowly and gently placed it in my mouth and took a bite. The head smiled wider and kept repeating it as if it were a chant or a spell. "It's only a nightmare," over and over again. And as I tasted and ate the head's eye, in every single bite that I took from the eye, I could hear oozing noises coming from my bites. The eye was still stuck on the knife, and as I was devouring it, the knife started cutting my lips. I was bleeding profusely from my gums and lips, which soaked my body, and the blood kept oozing and dripping. As well, the eye profusely oozed out the red liquid, and it dripped with my blood as if the two liquids could not blend, but only dance between one another. The head kept repeating, "It's only a nightmare." I held the head next to my body as I finished eating the eye and stared at it. The blood from my lip was dripping all over the floor and all over the head. It only smiled and said, "It's only a nightmare." I felt drowsy and I couldn't keep my stance. I fell on my back, and the floor didn't feel hard or rough. It was soft and comfortable. The room started to fade away, and I closed my eyes. Thank you for listening to the end. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to click that like button, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell icon to make sure you never miss a story.